welcome back. This is the Merdeka Award Roundtable. We're talking about the Spirit of Merdeka, nurturing visionaries. All right, Prof, I have to come back to you. You know, you talked about a new culture. You talked about the young, you know, let's be fair to them. It's not that they're not patriotic. It's just that they operate, you know, a different operating system, if you like, if you're going to use science and technology. What's going to make them stay? Many of them are not even here. What's going to make them come back? What's going to make them feel for Malaysia? Many say, I'm a citizen of the world. I'm global now.
Before I come to answer that question, yes,
yes,
in a similar way,
yes,
I need to digress slightly to disagree the opinion set upon by the panel.
Right. You
see, I think there has been a lot of comments saying we are too exam-orientated. You know, we spend so much time examination. Students are going to Kumon, going to year tuition and so on. But let's be fair to the student now. Let's understand what we have gone through. I've gone through a lot. If you are in 1960s, when you have about 100 students, we don't need examination because we know them all. If you have 10 students, you know them. Right. You can evaluate them from just talking to them. But if you have 100,000 students, how are you going to do it? It has to be done through examination. You have to have a filtering process. No way you can get away without having a filtering process. Any country in that world, you have to have, even in Korea, the Japanese, they have sleepless night. The parents make sure that they do very well in their entrance exam for the university. They spend nights, they sleep on the road, and they spend time. Every committee does that. And eventually you move up into the ladder. Now, one thing that has been said, I think I feel very strongly not comfortable that we overemphasize on EQ. Before any change or any advancement can take place in any country, in any field for that matter, even medical, you need to have IQ. You need intelligence to be able to digest complex information and translate into a procedure. If you have a medical doctor who is very good EQ, what you will get if you go see him, don't worry. If I think maybe you have a cancer or a heart problem, you go and see an EQ doctor, you don't worry, just take this tablet, you go, you'll be okay. These are EQ doctors. For all you know, when you go back home, you might get a heart failure, heart attack. If you have gone to an IQ doctor who has enough intelligence, who has done his work and education through the proper examination system, because you need to filter people, examine them, filter them to make them to become good doctors, he will look at you, no, you must go for further tests. They will tell you the truth, that you may be suffering from this, you need to go there. Okay. So, to me, we should not overemphasize on EQ. Don't get overboard. Intelligence has to be there. EQ is an added advantage.
It's a tough job for the people at the Merdeka Awards then, you know, given everything that we've heard today. Are they looking for people, individuals who have that balance, who have the IQ and the EQ?
The award is modeled along the Nobel Prize, and we copied a lot of the best practices from the Nobel Prize. So the nomination selection is very stringent, and we know that at the end of the day, the person or organization who wins the award has passed through a very stringent test. And I think everyone will agree that this guy demonstrates this Merdeka spirit, has contributed to the nation. In some cases, actually, they have global achievements. And please can see the past winners and forthcoming winners, you will see that this is true.
So what is it that we can do to make more post-Merdeka generation, those young people who are our leaders of the future, to say, all that good you're doing, you know, do do it for the country, recapture some of that love of the country, what drew us together. All the speeches by Tunku Abraman, you hear Tun Sambantan also, Tan Cheng Lo also, they all spoke in that same way, you know. Let's come together, let's celebrate our diversity, let's look at our points of commonality and let's move forward. So how do we
also picking up the earlier point, I think it's something to still do with emotional intelligence. I'm talking about EQ is a lot around emotional intelligence. Actually, you really look whether it's in NGO, it's a teacher or a political leadership or intellectual leadership, it always takes upon leaders to provide a very inspiring ecosystem. So one of the things you really look at it, it's both the heart and the mind. It's the kind of thing. So a lot of leaders needs to really tune in and connect with the new generation. I think one of the things we all know, today's context has changed. So to connect with the new generation and kind of thing requires a different form of connection. But if a lot of our leaders that's being in society, they themselves are not self-aware about what it really takes to connect, I mean, they themselves, what we call emotionally connected with themselves, how can they connect with another generation of people? So I think one of the things I really look at in terms of it is that we need a lot of visionary leadership. And I think that's what is a lot of lacking, because visionary leadership in any field, I see whether it's in institution leadership or it's NGO and others, it's required. And I think one of the key things we are also finding today, and I think just take a point Dina mentioned earlier, today we find a lot of leaders are fast track. I call it fast track. Whether it's political leadership, they get parachuted, or in terms of it, many of these young people, what I look at the leaders being trained today, there's so much of college but less kindergarten. So people don't go to the growing years or what we call ego maturity. Right. So one of the things that in the past, if you really look at leaders today, they've gone through these various rigmaroles, goes through the school of hard knocks and kind of thing to go. Sometimes we find we accelerate people too fast, whether it's political and kind of thing, you pay a price. So one of the things I look around visionary leadership is that we now need to really hold accountable for with whatever discipline is. But at the same time, I don't think we must be too concerned about brain drain. I think sometimes we say it's good to have brain drain rather than brain in the drain. You know? So one of the key things I really look about is about Malaysian diaspora. I think one of the things, if you looked at many generations ago, it's also good for the Malaysians to get exposed, be a global kind of thing, and build the Malaysian diaspora. But at the same time, you want exchange both ways. So we an ecosystem in Malaysia should encourage, because a lot of people will come and join inspiring leaders. It's often said, I think this is always the problem, people join great companies, but they leave leaders behind. And I think the key thing is about leadership. And that's the cornerstone of whether it's business leadership, political leadership, intellectual leadership, whether our universities have the best leadership talent to come, our businesses today have the best leadership, and people are attracting talent. And I think the key is leadership.